enrollment. And if you have questions about Medicare, you should talk to the local experts, Paul Barrich and Associates. Paul and his agents are certified with plans that are accepted by most of the medical groups in our area. Call 909-793-0385. Their service is free, and after 42 years in the business, their agents are trained to help you pick the plan that's right for you.
All Around Jumpers in Ontario would like to say thank you to all the local men and women in our armed forces who risk their lives daily to preserve our freedom and way of life. God bless America. This message courtesy of All Around Jumpers at 517 West J Street in Ontario. Trust the experts to rent your jumpers, balancers, tents, tables, chairs, popcorn, and cotton candy machines, and more. Call All Around Jumpers at 909-638-4564. That's 909-638-4564.
KCAA.
Welcome to the Worker Power Hour with Randy Corrigan, a brand new show about labor and worker issues. The host of the show is Randy Corrigan, Secretary Treasurer and Principal Office and leader of Teamsters 1932, one of the largest public sector labor unions on the West Coast, representing workers in government and non-sworn law enforcement personnel. Randy Corrigan is a 30-year Teamster who first became involved in the labor movement by volunteering his time as an organizer with the Teamsters Union at the age of 21. Since then, he's helped thousands organize, mobilize, and achieve bargaining rights. He accomplished this by spending countless hours with brave men and women all over Southern California, in their living rooms, on the picket line, to bring workers towards victory. This is the Worker Power Hour. And now here's the host of the show, Randy Corrigan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Worker Power Hour, KCAA 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. We got a pretty good show today. We got some guests. We got Dan Muncy he's a fire chief. He's going to come on the back half of our show. And then I have a couple guests sitting to my left on the screen to your right from Citrone's restaurant. It's actually mine and my wife's favorite restaurant in the IE to have dinner. It is unbelievable. Can't wait to hear from them on the later on in the front part of the show. We appreciate Dan and his chef here. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the name.
That's Patrizio.
That's it, Patricio.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, I hope I didn't butcher it too bad.
We can say Patrick.
Okay, Patri. All right. I've actually seen him in their cooking when I've been in there eating, and again, it's a great place. Can't wait to talk about it here in a few minutes. But I'm going to get through the first parts of my show normally, which are a recap. First of all, a longtime organizer, first-time radio host, Randy Corrigan here. Just having conversations about unions, how great they are for the community, and how we partner up with organizations, small businesses, and community leaders to make sure this community thrives and goes well. Our last show, we had a few of our members on from the fire district that we represent, San Bernardino County Fire District, and they talked about some of the things that they did and the work that they did, as well as there's a Measure W out there right now that can impact their jobs. But first and foremost, we just have a tendency to forget the infrastructure that we have every day. I actually spoke at a water event last Monday, a week ago Monday, and I'm going to talk about that here in a few minutes because, we just take for granted the safety that's around us from time to time and the infrastructure that's around us. And it's just, we have to take a step back, appreciate what's around us, appreciate those that do that work, like we're appreciating small business owners or public employees or firefighters and the like. And they did those two guests that we had on the last show, they did a really good job talking about the things that they did as far as the infrastructure is concerned when it comes to the fire department, and making sure that calls got dispatched in the right place, making sure bills get paid so that a building actually stays open, right? Make sure that payroll is handled. There's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteers that have to be managed to help with firefighting and fire services throughout what is one of the largest counties, well, the largest county in the United States. It's bigger than 6 states. And so it's not easy to manage that, and we really appreciate the work that they do. Frank, anything stand out to you in those fine young ladies that came here and talked about the great work that they do with the San Bernardino County Fire District?
Yeah, when people think of fire departments, they think of, the guys out there with the hoses and, the ladies out there with the hoses, hosing down burning houses, saving kittens from trees and stuff. But they don't realize there's a lot of people involved in the background that keep those people that do have the hoses and the ladders and everything able to do their jobs. And if we cut all their funding, it's going to make it harder for everybody. And being someone who lives in the forest, and my house almost burned in the 2003
Yeah, you get it. You get it real quick, don't you?
Yeah. So,
Right.
Being someone who lives in the forest, I don't want that. And I appreciate all the people, from the ones on the front of the fire line to the ones doing the paperwork and making sure everything stays running smoothly. So
Yeah, because a firefighter can't do their job without all the other work being done behind the scenes, and that's again where these things get taken for granted, and we love having those people on the show so that they can talk about these what appear to be small things when it comes to making sure that they're handling invoices and payroll and handling HR issues for staff, and just making sure that the lights are on at a building, or that the rent is paid, or the taxes are paid, or whatever it may be, to obviously just have the infrastructure operational, making sure that the water bill's paid. I mean, imagine firefighters operating without water. Obviously, it becomes a no-brainer. And the reality is we really appreciate the work that they do, and we were really glad that they were on here, and they just did a good job. And they also, I'm going to get into on the back end of the hour a little bit more about the Measure W. Really looking forward to Dan, Fire Chief Muncie, being on the show. Appreciate him carving time out and being here today. I'm also looking forward to some guests in the future. I think I'm going to have Don Rao on here. Supervisor Don Rao will be here next week, and I want to talk to her about some things up in the mountains. I mean, man, you guys got a lot of snow here, right? Did you get snowed in again?
I only missed one day this time instead of 2 weeks, but we did get quite a bit of snow. It would have been just as much as last year, but it was a little bit warmer of a storm. So the tail end gave us some good snow, but the beginning was just rain.
Oh, that's good. And it seemed like everybody, the infrastructure operated better. In other words, the response team, safety, roads, everybody was able to, all the staff, all of the employees of the county and the cities up there were more responsive and able to deal with the snow, unlike last year. Not that, I mean, last year was an incredibly difficult situation, but
I think we learned some lessons this past season, because I noticed right before the storm started, even when we get heavy rain in the mountains, just rain, not even snow, you get rock slides that will take out cover the whole road. And before, when it was first starting to sprinkle, I saw a plow truck that's designed to scoop up the rocks, waiting by the big turnout that always gets all the big, what's it called, the big mudslides. So I was impressed to see that they were prepared before the rain even started. They had people stationed in certain spots. So I was definitely impressed with the response at this storm. It wasn't nearly as big as the last one, but I think we've got now we know these big storms can happen. They hadn't happened in years.
Yeah. Decades.
Yeah. I think the last one was in the 80s that was this big in Crestline. So
yeah, and we want to thank the Teamsters because those Teamster members are the ones that cleared the roads. They're the ones that were on top of all that road work up there in the mountains, all the prep ahead of time, doing the things that were necessary to make sure those roads were clear, and learning from what happened the last time, because sometimes it's just so much snow. You can only do what you can do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the people that were willing to drive a bid rig through that to get us food.
Yeah. Again, Teamsters, man. That's what we love about the Teamsters.
Just putting chains on a bid rig must be the biggest pain, but much less driving all the way up there and giving us, supplies. And so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. We're as a more than 30-year Teamster, very prideful of all the classifications in which we represent and the jobs in which we represent. That's why we got the big billboards to say, think of Teamster. That's why we talk about worker power and we talk about these things. So the next part of my show, I'd like to talk about the three Teamster jobs, thinking of Teamster. And, it's a nice little transition there. We're talking about those Teamster jobs up the mountain and on the mountain that are making sure that the minimum amount of disruption happens in those tough times. Here in San Bernardino County, you're librarians. Again, thanks to Carlos Gonzalez. Carlos on my staff does a great job of every week giving me a handful of names and what they do. The librarians in San Bernardino County are Teamsters. They're a central point of the communities, making sure that a library is a place to go, check out books, conduct research, use the internet. You know, many of our kids, especially out in some remote areas, utilize those libraries for those things that I just listed. And a lot of people don't realize, too, that some lower income people or older individuals really depend on the libraries for a cool environment when things are really hot, too. We got a caller coming in, right? All right. I love this. Oh, yeah, I get called out on this. Call in toll free 888-909-1050. We'll get to the caller here in a second. Let me get through a couple of the jobs. And they can hold on, right? Thanks. Librarians. So thank a Teamster. Next time you're in a library, it's very likely, especially if you're in San Bernardino County, they're a Teamster, and we really appreciate the work they do in the community. Waterworks. You know, I spoke at this event just a week ago, Monday, and it was 350 professionals for water. Different aspects of it's jobs in the water industry when it comes to the infrastructure for water, like water treatment, making sure that the quality of water is taken care of, making sure there's nothing, poisonous put into the water. And, I really try to spend a lot of time appreciating the work that they do, because if you really look back over the last few thousand years, and I'm not exaggerating by saying a few thousand years, the last few thousand years, we have not been good to our water. Kings, kingdoms, societies have had a tendency to poison water or put things, let's say agricultural has done pesticides or whatever it may be. And the residual effect was something going into the groundwater, and then obviously people's water was tainted. A lot of your water professionals in these positions throughout San Bernardino County or the cities within the area and or agencies are Teamsters, and they're making sure that you have good water. And one of the things I told that group was that they're saving lives every day. When you think about how there's been countless situations where people have been poisoned on a very large scale because it's been okay to just dump things or put things here or there. The rules for water have only been in place for a very short period of time when you consider society as a whole. So thousands of years we've been around and, obviously been operating more than a couple hundred years as a country. But it's only been the last 40, 50 years that there's been real good protections when it comes to water, which is it's what you drink. It's what you put on your body when you're trying to cleanse yourself. And so we need to really appreciate how important those jobs are, and we really need to recognize how important they are when it comes to saving lives. No disrespect to any other profession, but when you really break down the math, I bet you they save more lives by preventing things that could really happen on a massive scale into communities than firefighters and police officers do. Think about that and think about how important those jobs are. I had a really great time with them when I spoke to them last week and really hope that they were able to connect to that. The last two jobs I want to point out is CFS, Children and Family Services, Teamsters at 1932. We represent workers whose sole job is to protect children from harmful situations. We have hundreds and hundreds of members that occupy this space in San Bernardino County. We really appreciate the work that they do. And, they investigate and they obviously go into homes, into difficult situations, and they're trying to rescue situations with children. And, we really got to commend those workers for the work that they do, our CFS members, Children and Family Services members in that space. Very, very tough job, very courageous job. We really appreciate the work that they do every single day. I want to talk about a famous Teamster real quick. Marcus Allen was a Teamster. I don't know if anybody knows that, but you do now. Marcus Allen was a Teamster. Of course, Carlos had to point this out to me because he's a Raider fan, and he wanted to make sure that we talked about how Marcus Allen he's a Heisman Trophy winner, a Super Bowl MVP, is a Hall of Famer, and he was a Teamster while on summer break at USC. He worked in the Earl M. Jorgensen steel mill there in the city of Linwood. And so he was a member of Local 578, which is now a local of 986. And Marcus Allen said he has been in some of the toughest training camps. I mean, think about it. This football player, he's been in training camps and then all this thing, all this stuff, very difficult as far as a football player is concerned. But he actually said that the toughest job he ever did was being a Teamster and doing that hard work in that steel mill. And he really appreciated the work of those individuals he worked around. Let's not forget this is the Worker Power Hour, KCAA 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. And sorry for holding somebody on the line as long as I did. Hopefully they didn't hang up on us. Did they?
No.
Who's there? Who's this? This is Randy. This is the Worker Power Hour. Randy Corrigan.
Hey, Randy. It's Edwin, and I wanted to thank you for coming down to our conference for P3S, Pollution Prevention and Stormwater. And your speech was inspiring, and I just wanted to give you thanks for coming down and helping us out with that.
Oh, Edwin, I really appreciate you calling in on the show. I actually was talking about you guys here a minute ago. I think you can hear when you were on hold. So do you feel like the group kind of resonated and understood that the Teamsters and unions, we appreciate their value in the community?
Yeah, I heard a lot of comments from some of the folks around, and some of them came up to me and spoke, and they were very motivated by your speech. That's what I heard a lot. I heard motivated, and then I heard a lot of you said that bit where you said that their jobs and the work they do is so important. And we tell each other constantly that the work we do is important, protecting the water is important, and all those things. But when you mentioned how important they were, that really resonated, because I don't think a lot of us really think that way, that the work that we are doing specifically, we are doing is important versus the work getting done is important. But us ourselves and being in that position, being the worker and being the force that drives it and does the inspections, ensures that the public's protected, ensures that the businesses are in compliance, and they don't. Sometimes you forget how much your skill and your experience, how important that can be as a worker, because you really you think about it as regulation, as protecting the environment, protecting property.
It's really important for us socially to not take those things for granted, right? Like we turn the faucet on and we get some water that comes out. Yeah, maybe we want to filter on it because we want it a little bit cleaner, or we want minerals changed or whatever it may be. But, historically, you turn on a faucet, if you go back 100 years, 150 years, there clearly was no rules. You had no idea what was going to come out that faucet. But that's good to hear. Can give the listeners just an example of one job, because obviously there was a ton of different job classifications that were represented at this conference from last week. But what, in your mind, is probably one of the most important jobs on the front of safety to make sure that millions and millions of people, residents every day get clean water?
So we cater to a myriad of jobs, like you said. They're all very important, but our main focus really for our committee, because we're under our main association, which is the California Water and Environment Association, is our focus is really a lot more towards inspectors and inspecting and regulation and the higher up, the management. When it comes to understanding regulations and the inspectors that are out in the field, you've got them going into businesses sometimes where they're not welcomed, or in areas where they're not exactly safe, but they still got to do the job. And they're going out there, they're Teamsters, and they're everywhere. And it's really those are the ones I'd like to highlight. Those inspectors that are the first ones on site, the first ones to show up and try to. And really, I know we talk a lot about enforcement and regulations, but most of an inspector's job, especially my inspectors when I train them, is being able to communicate with those business owners and get them to understand that we're not there to discipline them. We're there to help them. Because our mission isn't to be police. Our mission is to protect the environment. And we think that's a communal effort.
It sure is, and I really appreciate you calling in, Edwin. I plan on doing a show down the road, probably in a month or so, that drill down a little bit more on this subject, and we can get into some more specifics. Appreciate you calling in and sharing what you got out of us connecting and me talking to the group, as well as I learned a lot from the group too. I learned that the first so-called environmental sort of bill that was ever passed was in 1899. It was the Bridges and I'm sorry, the Rivers and Ports Act.
Yeah.
Bridges and Harbors.
Yeah.
And it was really to protect trade, not necessarily about clean water. And then you really had to get all the way to the 1960s to deal with clean water. And so without getting into the weeds of all that, we'll talk about that at a later show. We really appreciate your leadership in that group of workers across California. In addition to, we appreciate all the work that they do, and those inspectors that are out there that show up and make sure that everybody's just doing the right thing, so that in the end the water is good, and we reduce the amount of sort of risk that's there. And so thanks again, Edwin, for calling in. Really appreciate you calling in. Let me switch over to the next part of our show. It's current news. I'm going to shorten this down a bit. It's actually something that's very near and dear to me, which is Michigan's right to work repeal finally goes back into play. And I'm actually going to talk about this one thing. I have more on here to talk about, and running a little bit late in our show, but I guess it's my show. I get the right to do this, right, guys? I can slow this down, speed it up. The reason why right to work in Michigan being repealed was a big deal. It's the first time in 60 years it had been repealed. And right to work is a good phrase. It sounds good, but it is actually a very discriminative, and its origins are actually based in an extreme amount of racism. And so there's 27 states in America are what they call right to work states. And what that really means is the right not to have to pay dues. In other words, they can be in a union environment and not pay dues. And you're saying, well, what if I don't like my union? Then why should I want to pay? Well, I think we've well established that unions make sure that fair wages, hours, and working conditions are in play. And clearly, we're the only business in America, unions, where there's a law that prevents people from having to pay. I mean, imagine if restaurants were in this situation where I don't like what, and that someone came to your restaurant every single week and you had to serve them, and then they didn't have to pay. Imagine that was for burgers or tacos or for anything. We're the only business in America that has had to deal with what they call right to work legislation for the last 65 years. And so about 10 years ago, the right to work legislation passed in Michigan, and it was just sent shockwaves because it's a very working class area, and it's very unlike a very working class area to go right to work. And the reason why right to work was passed originally in the 1960s was because, believe it or not, as crazy as this sounds, it's absolutely true, is that a group of people tried to divide workers with one another and say, well, if you're white and you don't want to participate in a union with black people, then guess what? You don't have to pay dues and participate in that union, and that's what right to work is. No exaggeration, no lie, no mistruth. The history of it, the person's name was Vance Muse. He's the one who started it in the late 50s and early 60s. This legislation caught on and is absolutely racist, divisive, and quite frankly, it's just to create a freeloading situation where unions have to do all this work for free. And yeah, there's some things we like to do for free, like we like to do our Teamster Advantage for free. We don't charge any of our small businesses for these things, but our members decide that. But to actually have to represent and do all these other things in an environment where they say, "Oh no, I'm not going to pay any dues," and have the right to work as a law in place is just completely it's imbalanced. And so to have that repealed, so it went into place, which was a shock. It's the first time it's ever been repealed in 60 years. And so Michigan, congratulations to you. Congratulations to the working class there to be able to push that back and put that right in the back space, right back in the right place. And to see that start next Tuesday, we're back on the right track. I know we got a commercial break. I'm going to drag a little bit here, if you don't mind, because I want to get to the Teamster Advantage partner. So we're going to go to the break a little bit late, Frank. Short of that, we'll actually do a full show on Right to Work later on down the road, because it's as anything, sometimes there's these catchphrases that actually mean the opposite. Because if you look at Right to Work states actually make less money. The average worker makes less money in Right to Work states than the non-Right to Work states. And so it's just a catchphrase that caught on in the 1960s, and it's a policy that's incredibly divisive and discriminative. And we'll get into more detail in the future. But as far as unions are concerned, that news is great that that's going to go back into play. And it's a lot of work done on the ground, lots of doors being knocked. And so with that, I'm going to transition into the last part of the front part of our show, which is always having the Teamster Advantage partner on. And to my left here, I have Dan, and I have his chef. Again, I don't want to butcher his name again. My apologies. And Citrone's Restaurant. Actually, my wife walked in. She's sitting over there, and it's literally our favorite place to have dinner. We love the old location on Orange, and obviously your new location is phenomenal because it's a little bit bigger. And Dan, why don't you tell us about your restaurant?
Yeah, head chef Patricio. I actually learned how to say it after a couple of days, but it is difficult.
Yeah, I've only had about 15, 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah, definitely gets easier. Citrone has been around since 1995. I was actually a waiter there in college when I was at the University of Redlands, and he had moved across to the Orange location. He used to be in the train depot in 99. My partner and I, Brandon Pierce, fourth generation Redlands guy, we always loved the restaurant. We're good friends with the previous owner. Brandon spent all his special occasions there with his family. It meant a lot to him. In 2017, Mike, the previous owner, decided to sell and buy a winery up in Oregon and make wine with his sons. And he approached us about buying the business and the building. And my friend and I, my best friend from college, were like, you know what, let's do it. And so we bought it in 2017. And as you said, in April this year, we moved to a little bit bigger spot on Olive and Citrus in Redlands. Gives us get a much bigger kitchen. We were pretty limited on size before, so this allows us to do a lot more covers, which with increasing costs of everything, it's important that we can do more covers per night, more people per night, I should say.
Yeah, that space is great. I love that outside area too.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to eat in the outside area yet, but you're on that corner, that point there. It's got a great view.
A lot of fun during the bicycle classic. If you come there, they come around the corner, and it's pretty fun to watch pretty fun to watch the bikes. But yeah, we were very fortunate to get the spot. And this past September, we had a shift going on in the kitchen over the summertime, and we took a while to try to find a established chef with some great credentials from outside the area. And we wanted to bring something to Redlands, someone in Redlands that they can get excited for. They can see different kind of food. Hopefully take it up a level that people would appreciate. So we found Patricio, thankfully, by referral from a former boss of his in New York. And he came on board in September. And we took a couple months to kind of get familiar with each other, let him build out a kitchen of guys that are kicking butt there for him. And this past week, I'll let him talk about it, but we released
what's your favorite dish?
I will say my favorite dish that we have on the menu, it's probably the new veal Milanese. It's a version of veal schnitzel, but kind of like Italian style. So that's why it's called Milanese, because it's like Milano style. And honestly, it's one of my favorite thing to eat at Citrone.
Pretty amazing. Bone-in veal chop, best part.
Oh,
best
nice.
part you can get, and cooked like the schnitzel, but just thicker, more of a man size for sure.
Your appetizers are great too. Hey, love, what's our favorite appetizer there? Can you remember off the top of your head? My wife's looking at me like, why'd you just call on me right now?
Well, right. I can guarantee you guys are about to have you come in tonight, you're about to have a new favorite appetizer. He brought some stuff on. We have
I'm going to be there.
Oh, he's crudo we got on there on the menu, a nice
Well, we have like a beet salad. That's like a new thing that most of the restaurant, they serve beets with goat cheese. I decided to take a twist with the ricotta. So the way I do it's a little bit more Italian. And then we have carpaccio. That's a very classic Italian dish. And it's a raw meat, but seasoned in a very nice
truffle aioli.
Truffle aioli. Yeah, we don't want to give too much information because we want to keep a surprise for you, no?
So it's Valentine's Day. This is your busiest day of the year, right?
Correct.
So do you have a limited menu on Valentine's Day, or do you have full menu?
We don't this year. Typically we would need to, just because at our older place with a smaller kitchen, you're very limited on what we can do, and we're trying to take advantage of a day like this. Now, we always provided an expansive menu for Valentine's Day, because in our industry, Valentine's Day is called an amateur night, because you're going out there having to spend a lot of money to keep your loved one happy, but it's not necessarily the food you would normally choose. We've always been about, we want everybody to have a great experience. We don't want to make it stuff you in there, get you out, bring in the next people. We want people to sit, enjoy themselves. We're a small town. We love our regulars that come in, and we don't want to force feed people something they don't want. So this year is actually the first menu we've been able to do, because he has such a great kitchen staff that we can handle it. That's a wide open menu. So just come as you are, what you want to get, and
I'm going to be
yourself.
standing at the window, knocking on the door, going, "Hey, let me in! It's Valentine's Day."
I'm telling you, I know you don't do steaks anymore, but the pork chop.
Oh, my wife will do a steak. Don't worry about that.
Oh, she'll love the steak.
And I'll definitely have the pork chop.
Perfect.
Well, we got to wrap up. Sorry, I got a little long-winded on my other stuff. We really appreciate you guys coming in. Is there anything you want to close, any points you want to close on about the restaurant, about a meal, about a special? Or what's the discount we get there, Mark? Is it 10%?
10%, I believe.
Teamsters get a 10% discount. We appreciate the partnership. I know I asked you one other question. Maybe the other question would be, do you like this partnership between the Teamsters, and what does that mean to you?
It means a lot. I mean, I wish we could do more than 10%. I mean, businesses can only allow you to do so much, unfortunately.
10% is great, man.
We do try to take care of as much as we can. We appreciate it because we appreciate what the people, Teamsters, whether it be in the fire department, the water department, the police department, what they do for us as a community. Redlands is a very small, intimate community. We all know each other. We all care about each other. The police, the fire department, they've taken care of us over the years. And we're same as everybody. We have to deal with some of the complexities out on the streets and people doing dumb things, and we got to deal with it. And we've always been supported. They've always been active in helping us. We want to bring a great experience to our customers, so we don't want anybody to interfere with that. And sometimes, unfortunately, we have to get police involved. And since the get-go, they've always been incredibly supportive. So I appreciate the job they got to do, because I watch the things they deal with. Some of the stupidity that they're forced to deal with. And I respect that, because I don't have the patience to deal with it. So what they do for us, it really helps us run a great restaurant, because, again, if it gets out of hand, no one wants to come to a place where they got to walk through a bunch of issues.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about another dish before we wrap up?
Sure. I will probably have people to try the new pizza that we do, like this pizza. Napolitan pizza, because we are not just a steakhouse. Pizza. We have a lot of seafood, and we have authentic pizza,
I'm ordering that pizza tonight.
Yeah, like I said, we just released a brand new menu this past Tuesday, and this is more reflective of our head chef's talents and the talents of that kitchen. It is an outstanding menu. My hope is to lose weight this year, and I can tell you right now, it's not going to happen. No,
that's not going to happen.
So it's an amazing menu. Everybody has to come in. Yeah, you should check it out. The ambiance is incredible. We have a great bar area, first come, first serve. We got TVs up. We like a casual bar if you want to watch the game. Great place to have a dinner, watch the game with yourself. So come on,
Dan, I can tell you like to talk, because I'm having a hard time jumping in here to cut you off, because we've got to get to break, man. Really appreciate it, you guys. So Worker Power Hour, KCAA 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. We have Citroen sitting here with us, and make sure that you visit it. Great Teamster Advantage partner. Catch you on the other side of the hour.
Year again. No, not the holidays. Medicare open enrollment. And if you have questions about Medicare, you should talk to the local experts. Paul Berich and Associates. Paul and his agents are certified with plans that are accepted by most of the medical groups in our area. Call 909-793-0385.
For over a century, AM radio has evolved to meet the needs of our community. More than 80 million listeners depend on AM radio each month. It's also the backbone of the emergency alert system, keeping us safe in dangerous times. A new bill in Congress would ensure sure this free, reliable service remains in cars. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to support the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may
in
text
Ontario would like to say thank you to all the local men and women in our armed forces who risk their lives daily to preserve our freedom and way of life. God bless America. This message courtesy of All Around Jumpers at 517 West J Street in Ontario. Trust the experts to rent your jumpers, balancers, tents, tables, chairs, popcorn, and cotton candy machines, and more. Call All Around Jumpers at 909-638-4564. That's 909-638-4564. Redlands Auto Electric reminds everyone that the blood you donate gives someone another chance at life. Someday, that someone might be a friend, a loved one, or even you, so please give blood and give the gift of life. This message courtesy of Redlands Auto Electric at 1165 West Park Avenue in Redlands, known for quality, integrity, and knowledgeable service. Call 909-792-4776. Redlands Auto Electric, on the air because they care.
Randy Corrigan, the Worker Power Hour, 106.5 FM, KCAA 1050 AM. I bet that backwards. See, long-time organizer, first-time radio host. See, I get to mix it up every now and then. I get to make mistakes for like 4 years, and I get to say, I'm a rookie at this. But no, I'm having a great time. With this show. It's been great to hear a lot of the feedback from a lot of people that are listening, and it's been great to see all the guests. We got guests lined up literally for I think the next couple months. The guest I have sitting to my left right now, Dan Muncy, he is the fire chief for San Bernardino County, and I'm not going to do a lot of talking. I'd like for him to introduce himself and talk about some of the stuff that he does on a daily basis, and then we'll get into some of the other Measure W stuff. After we just get to hear how important his job is, how important the work is, and sometimes it's just a firefighter that people think about, and they don't think about all the other stuff that goes into making sure that that there's fire safety in your particular area, especially in these remote areas. San Bernardino County has so many remote areas, it's such a big, vast area, and with that. Great to have you, Dan. We've known each other for a while. I think there's a mutual admiration. You do a lot of great work. I really, really appreciate the work that you do. You got a great team of people that some of them happen to be Teamsters.
100 of them.
Yeah, and they're great. And take it over.
Gosh, thank you for inviting us here to speak. And I was so happy to hear Letty and Alicia last year talking.
Didn't they do a great job?
Yeah, they did an amazing job. And you nailed it, Randy, earlier when you were talking about what goes behind the scenes to make sure that the fire engine's wheels are moving. And our Teamster employees and the other employees that are out there are working so hard. They're working just as hard as the firefighters, making sure that our mission's accomplished. Did you know that San Bernardino County is the biggest county in the United States? You mentioned we cover 20,000 square miles. You can take the 4 smallest states in the Union, and all of them would fit in within our geographical borders. And those of us that live here, we love it. We've got the metro cities, the San Bernardino Valley, and we have the mountains that are totally beautiful. And then you drop in the deserts, Mojave National Preserve and Joshua Tree. But I bet you didn't know, we are rated in the top 3 of disaster counties in the United States.
Really?
Almost every single year. Our OES has been activated. OES, Office of Emergency Services, our Emergency Operating Center, has been one of the most activated EOCs in the United States.
And it's because of that size, right? It's like we're impacted by everything.
Well, if you think about it, we have the wildfires, we have the mud, we have the debris flow, we have 10 feet of snow that comes in Februarys and buries people's houses.
Like Frank over there, right?
Like Frank was talking about earlier. But we also have a lot of hazardous materials. I bet you didn't know we had 26 different train derailments that caused hazardous materials over the last 4 years. We have airplane crashes. We have significant urban search and rescue calls.
Yeah, a lot of places for people to go hiking and stuff like that too, and a lot of recreation areas that cause you guys to have to manage and patrol, right?
Right, and let's not forget about the Cajon Pass and the fault line that runs through it. So tremendous county. Our firefighters, the folks that work for our fire district work extremely hard. Now, I just said something I want to make very clear. I said fire district. We are a special district of California. often people say, well, you're the fire department. There's a big distinction. As a special district, we're not a department of the county. We're not eligible to general fund. So as we're talking about Measure W, which is the measure that's coming on the March 5th ballot, and this measure aims to repeal our FP5 fire tax. That fire tax accounts for $46.5 million of our operational budget on an annual basis. That fire tax is $171.85 per parcel per year. So each property owner, not the renter, the actual property owner on any property that has an APN pays one flat tax, $171.85, and total 46.5. So Measure W would repeal that. But people often say, I would say a small population say, hey, don't worry about this fire tax. Go ahead and repeal it because the county has plenty of money in the general fund. And as a special district,
they're not supposed to get money from there.
We don't get money from the general fund. And I point out that we're not the only special district in California. It's very common. School districts, water districts, parks and recreation, sanitation, zoos, it goes on and on and on. So the board has made it very clear. Chief, we love our firefighters. You do an amazing job keeping San Bernardino County safe. But if we were to give you general fund money, we would need to give every special district in San Bernardino that general fund money. And people don't realize we're not the only fire district out there. There's Rancho Cucamonga Fire District, Chino Hills Fire District. Big Bear is a fire authority. These are all special districts. And then the school districts is probably one of the greatest examples. There are some certain school districts that are funded very well and some that aren't. And they don't give those school districts money. So Measure W is coming up. A yes vote would repeal and remove $46.5 million out of our operation budget. A no vote would mean that the fire district keeps that $46.5 million. Now, let's make it very clear. This money is 100% used to keep the fire engines moving, to keep the fire stations open, to pay for the staffing that's required to support those activities. We have enterprise accounts like our ambulances. San Bernardino County Fire, not every fire department does. We have ambulances. We charge a fee to the insurances. They pay the fee. That pays for the ambulances. But we can't use that money due to Prop 218 to pay for firefighters or the staff. It's got to pay for the ambulances. Same thing with our fire marshals division. They charge a fee for things like plans check or a business inspection. That money must be used to pay for the fire marshal's office. We can't take those funds and pay for firefighters. FP5, our fire tax, pays for the fire engines to respond.
So I know you can't say this, but I can. I would say you vote no on W. And matter of fact, I think it was Alicia or Letty that said it perfectly. If you have questions, just go into a fire station and talk to those in the fire station. They'll explain to you a lot of what you just talked about, and obviously the consequences of the fire tax being repealed. And that, I get it. You know, a lot of people say, I pay too much taxes. I pay too much taxes. But what happens is kind of like we talked about the water. Is we have a tendency to kind of forget that there's these infrastructure things in place, and them being in place, that when we dial 911 and we make sure that, you know, firefighters are going to show up and help take care of something. And you just pointed out, I think a lot of listeners probably are not aware of like the responsibilities of your fire district that go beyond just fighting a fire, right? Just responding to the call that there's a fire at a structure or a property or on the side of the road. And that all these things are affected by a decision like this. And it's really, really important not to be whimsical about it. And we really appreciate you coming on and talking about like the nuts and bolts right here of that job and how important it is for us to make sure that those are robust services, especially when you break it down into it's $171 a parcel. Like if it's $171 a parcel, and everybody's paying the same tax. That's what you hear all the time, usually from the criticism is, well, how come they're paying more and I'm paying less, or I'm paying more and they're paying less? This is one that's universal across. Is that what I heard? Everybody pays the same amount?
Yes, it's regardless of the size of the parcel or what type of parcel, it's always the same amount. It's $171.85.
That's great. Really, what else do you have to add as far as, let's talk about, before we get into the other stuff, you know, infrastructure, like daily basis, all the massive amount of things you guys have to do on a daily basis.
Well, let's play a game first, Randy. I'm going to ask you a question.
I'm not big on games, but okay.
Yeah, we're going to try this. Don't make me ask Frank.
Okay.
How much is a new fire engine?
Oh my God, it got to be $500,000.
$500,000. That's a pretty good guess. In 2009, I started asking that question when I first became battalion chief, and people threw in an answer. In 2009, it was $350,000. Now we've had this little period of inflation over the years. Now a new fire engine's $1.2 million.
Oh my goodness!
Crazy. And we are a Ford or Chevy or a Dodge department. This is not a Cadillac fire department. This is safe, reliable. Our fire engines operate frontline for 12 years, but just like the listeners, I don't have the ability to go out and borrow money. I don't want to put ourselves in debt, and I can't just in our operational budget just buy 10 new fire engines.
You're the chief. You're in charge of all this stuff.
I have to put a little bit of money away every single year to make sure that we're able to buy the fire engines. Now, here's another shocking thing. A fire truck, those are the ones that actually have the big ladder on, $2.3 million. Here's another scary fact.
How do we pay for this if we don't have revenue?
It's been a struggle for the fire district over the years, and
even with FP5 being in place.
It has. We are very active at looking for grants. We're fairly effective at it. We've got a couple of great grant writers that do a great job on that. But not only the fire equipment, but the fire stations themselves. When we build a fire station, it's going to be there 100 years. We want to make sure it's going to be the right size, going to be the right spot to do the most amount of good for the most amount of people. A new fire station is pushing $14 million. So the cost of fire protection is very expensive. When you talk about, as a fire chief, I can't advocate for or against Measure W, and I respect the fact that you can, Randy.
Oh, absolutely I can. We pay for this.
But $46.5 million is not something that I can overcome as a fire chief without making cuts and closures. There is no other identified revenue source. As a fire chief, I have to provide the best service with the dollars given to me by the public.
Yeah, you got a fiduciary responsibility.
I do. What this means is that if the tax measure is repealed, then I will build a budget that is reduced by $46.5 million. I want to make it clear. There is no identified revenue source that can replace this. And effectively, this could lead to station closures, could lead to increased response times to emergencies.
And you have to prepare as if that's going to happen, right? You have to look at it as if, there's not going to be, if the measure passes and you look at it to balance the budget with $46 million less, then you can't just hope a magic wand's going to be waved. You literally got to make the cuts. You got to do. And I actually heard, I was a few years ago when this first raised, when it was Measure U or something else, because believe me, it's been a bunch of iterations of this situation for a few years now. And I remember debating somebody while we were out dealing with it, and they tried to tell me, they actually tried to convince me that, they'll just get the money from a different source. And I'm like, that's actually not what you're allowed to do, but okay, what's the source then? So the person that had said, I don't know, it's going to come from a different area. Like, you have convinced yourself it's okay to cut a resource that you currently need, and you're not even sure where that money is going to come from. So let's assume they're saying it's the general fund. But that's fundamentally actually improper to be trying to get it from a different fund. Like you said, the county's got to pay for all these other things they're hardly obligated to pay for. So try not to believe the rhetoric that's out there. The reality is the $46 million a year right now is being used as Chief Muncie laid out to provide fire services and support, not just fire services, but all the services you laid out here a few minutes ago for this vast, massive region. And that, something that I think it was Letty or Alicia pointed out last show, that was very impactful for me was think about all the people that drive through the county. They need these services as well. And so millions of people drive through on I-40, the 15, the 10, and guess what? I'm sorry, but that's part of the responsibility of the area is to make sure these things are taken care of too. So you've got to figure out how to cut back on all that. And anybody that would say there's not going to be a cut back in those services is just not telling the truth. I know you may not be able to comment on this, but I'm the principal officer of a large organization myself, and I'm in charge of budgets and how to manage it. And if I see that $46 million a year is going to be disappearing, I have to cut back somewhere. And that means we're going to have less of a number of things in the system.
It's about 19% of our operating budget. You are correct on the transit. In about 2008, there was a study that showed this is 2008, every hour that the Cajon Pass is shut down, that's $1 million in commerce that's lost. So you can imagine all those truck drivers that are sitting there. Simply put, if there's less resources, it'll take us a little longer to get to the incident, and it'll take us longer to mitigate that incident. It could prevent us from getting to the fires when they're small, allowing them to get bigger. But there's a lot of economic impacts that are associated with this, and plenty of studies that are out there that have demonstrated this over the years. Randy, we truly appreciate you allowing me to come to this program. Our fire department responds to 196,000 calls per year.
What was that number again?
196,000 calls. That puts us in the top 10% in the nation. And I bet you didn't know this. Our units in San Bernardino City are rated in the top 10 busiest units. Our firefighters work extremely hard. So does everybody that's supporting them. We do a lot with a little. We don't have the budgets of a bigger fire department. We're not as well staffed as a lot of fire departments are. A normal fire engine will respond to about 3,000 calls would be the max. Our fire engines in San Bernardino City, we have a couple that are pushing almost 7,000 calls, so more than double that. Those of our staff members that are listening, and I know that there's more than a few, thank you for what you do for this fire district. You make it possible to really get out there and save the human lives and protect people, keep our commerce moving, keeping the economy moving, and you mean a lot to me as a fire chief, and you mean a lot to the Board of Supervisors and to the citizens here. Thank you.
196,000 calls. Yeah, and I always hear this, firefighters don't do anything, just sit around and wait for the phone to ring. The phone rings a lot, as we just heard. Statistically, we can hear that that's a lot going on. And, we joked around. I don't really have time to get into it now because we only got about 4 minutes left. But back in the day, 100 and some years ago, fire service wasn't part of the normal community. It wasn't a social program. You had to pay for it specifically and independently, and obviously only those that had the money could do it. And fire would be dispatched, but they would be there to spray water on the structure that was protected and just allow the other ones to burn down. And at a certain point, someone said, hey, you know what, maybe it ought to just be kind of fair and spread among everybody. And so these types of taxes have been passed to make sure that, because what happens is when disaster happens, you don't want to say what could have happened. What your team does every single day, the firefighters, the support team, all these individuals that are working hard every day, is they're actually averting disasters before they become one. You talked about the response time being delayed. Imagine there's a response time going from 3 minutes to 5 to 7. Well, you don't know that's a negative until someone just died in your living room because it happened to you. And you don't want it to be because you didn't pay attention to something like this and services were cut, and guess what? It now takes us 7 or 10 minutes to get somewhere versus 5. We have to stop as a society taking this stuff for granted. We have to appreciate one another more. We have to appreciate the work that one another does, and we really, really respect the work that goes into this. And the people that get overlooked, I always laugh about the situation with firefighters. The firefighters get all the glory, but it's all the people in the background that make sure that the firefighters can do their job that get kind of left out from time to time. What do you think about that?
Yeah, they do an amazing job, and you're right. The firefighters are the ones who are in the news, and they're holding the hose and putting the fires out, and they're rescuing people. But at the end of the day, as firefighters, we cannot do anything unless the wheels on the fire engine are moving. And to get the wheels moving is so many people that are involved. I couldn't be any prouder of our support staff that's there to support our firefighters. The entire team does an amazing job. We do it together.
Dan, really appreciate you coming on here. Fire Chief.
Thank you for having
me. For the San Bernardino Fire District. This is the Worker Power Hour, KCAA 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. We've spent the last hour, we've really covered a lot of subjects. We talked a little bit about the water stuff. I know you sat on a water board before. We don't really have time to talk about it, but you were on a water board, right?
11 years.
All right. So you understood all the things I was talking about.
I loved what you said.
Important about water. I got 2 minutes. And we talked about that, and we talked about these jobs, these important jobs that Teamsters do. And, I'm sure you see our branding of Think a Teamster. And it's really, the message behind that is to just really build that appreciation in the community. build a really good relationship between our community, the people that protect the community, work in the community every day, as well as the person that drives the groceries up the mountain when the snow to make sure, and puts the chains on that crazy big truck, like Frank had pointed out earlier.
Hey, if they're not doing it, then the firefighters got to fix that problem. So we appreciate those drivers going up in the snowstorm.
Exactly. And so, we clear the road, we make sure that the product gets there, and then, we help make sure the kids are taught and make sure the firefighters get their supplies. On top of it, we make sure that a certain city gets this and a certain city gets that. Children at a school get their food. The child protection that we talked about earlier. There's all these great things. Librarians, and we represent everything from airline pilots to zookeepers. I got 1 minute.
Wow.
I'm going to close up, and I'll close it up by saying this is the Worker Power Hour. Randy Corrigan, I really appreciate the fact that I'm a longtime organizer, first-time radio host, and what we encourage everybody to do is build worker power. And how can you build worker power? Talk to your friends. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your relatives. Talk about what worker power really means, because worker power is about building these rules and protecting this sort of infrastructure so that we can be safe, we can appreciate one another, we can help one another, and at the end of the day, it becomes a thriving community. Randy Corrigan, Worker Power, KCAA 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. Signing off.